Welcome back to Talking with the Mayor. I have a new guest with us on the program this evening, but he's not new to Brampton. Mike Proudlock has worked for the region of Peel for almost as long as I've been there. He is in charge of the Peel Heritage Complex, both particularly the museum, and we have the art gallery, as you know, in the Downtown Heritage Complex. And we've got a really spectacular show there that most of you know about. It's the Titanic show. And I'm going to use a few minutes here and Mike's expertise to get you excited about going down and visiting the show if you haven't already been there. Or if your kid's watching the show, maybe to talk your teacher into rounding up a group of the students and taking you down. Mike, tell us first of all a little bit about an overview of the Heritage Complex.
Sure, and thanks, Mayor, for the kind introduction. The Peel Heritage Complex, as you know, and I know you've been a supporter of the complex for many years, is owned and operated by the region of Peel, and it includes the Peel Museum, the Art Gallery of Peel, and the region of Peel Archives. So it's a whole, and it's housed in 4 heritage buildings: the old Peel County Courthouse, the jail, the old registry office, and the former Brampton Hydro Building.
I can't ever remember such a high-profile show that you've brought in. We've had good artists, we've had some very unique shows, but somehow you've timed it beautifully, or we lucked out, I don't know what it is, in that we have a display about the Titanic. Can you explain a little bit about what are the artifacts,
Sure.
some of the things that people might see as they get excited about this show and visit you?
And I want you, sure thing, and I want you to know, Mayor, that it was good management that brought the exhibit when it did. Actually, no, it was really very fortunate on our part. We had booked Titanic artifacts over a year ago, and all we knew at the time was that there was going to be a movie out in probably July of 1997, and it was going to be a flop. Oh. But what happened, of course, is that the movie was delayed until December, and she was no flop. Right. And it's done nothing but attract thousands of people to the Heritage Complex.
So how would the artifacts actually be collected and put together and eventually end up in this exhibit?
They're owned by a Canadian collector, a man named Steve Santini. Most of them are owned by Steve Santini, who's a resident of Winnipeg. And he's been collecting artifacts related to the Titanic and the Olympic and the White Star Line over the last 20 years. And the way he makes his living is by renting out or otherwise loaning these artifacts that he's acquired. And fortunately for us, the timing was just perfect. And I would like to point out that no artifact in our exhibit was plundered from the wreck site. All of the artifacts that we have on display, and we'll talk about a few of them in a minute, were actually recovered in 1912, floating on the surface of the ocean, or had washed ashore. Okay. So none of them have been removed from the site in recent times. Right.
And how excited and how successful has this show been?
It's been incredible. It's by far the most successful exhibition we've ever had. People are telling us they've lived in Brampton all their lives. They've never been in to the complex. Now they're coming in. We've had people from as far away as Cleveland, Ohio, drive all the way up to Brampton into the region of Peel specifically for our exhibition, telling us what a fabulous exhibit it is.
So just in case someone hasn't been there, people can park at City Hall, especially in the evenings and the weekends. The rates of parking are good. You get 3 hours for free. The evenings are free as well. What are the hours of the Heritage Theatre in the evenings so that people don't get disappointed and find the doors closed?
We're open 7 days a week. We'd be open 8 days if there was an 8th day, but there's only 7, so we're open 7 days a week. Through the week, Monday through Friday, we're open 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And on Thursday evenings, we're open 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And on weekends, we're open 12 noon to 4:30 p.m. And we tell everybody who phones about the wonderful parking arrangement that the City of Brampton has.
So the only evening they can come down is Thursday evening?
Tonight we were packed.
Great.
Tonight. And you asked me about the artifacts, and maybe I'll just take the opportunity to talk a little bit about them.
Sure.
the artifact that's gotten most attention is the deck chair.
Oh.
In fact, it's the only surviving example of a first-class deck chair that came from the Titanic. You'll notice the White Star emblem at the top of the chair, and it is made of mahogany, by the way, and it differs slightly from most of the deck chairs that were on the Titanic because they had slats. And this particular deck chair, as you can see, is caned. And what that indicates is that that deck chair came from one of the private first-class suites. There were a number of the first-class suites that had their own private deck areas, outdoor deck areas. And this is where that particular deck chair came from. There's a scene in the movie where the fiancé to Kate Winslet, whose name is Caledon Hockley, which is a direct reference to the region of Peel, because James Cameron, who is the writer-director, spent many of his summers in the Caledon, Hockley, Brampton areas.
Right.
And he wanted to make reference to that in the movie, so he named the fiancé to Kate Winslet Caledon Hockley.
Oh,
now, Americans, that name means nothing to them, but to you and I, we know. And there's a scene in the movie where he knocks over all of the dishes that are on this table. And that scene takes place in that private outdoor area of the first-class suite that this deck chair would have been in. It's the only surviving example.
Wow. And while we have the camera focused there, I presume that is one of the life jackets.
Yes, it is. That is a life jacket from the Titanic. It was unfortunately removed from one of the bodies. After the disaster, the White Star Line commissioned 2 salvage ships to go out and collect bodies, try to identify them if they could. If they couldn't identify them, people were buried at sea. One of the interesting aspects to the life jackets is that they, I hate to say this, but they killed as many people as they saved.
Wow.
You'll see that the front and rear of the life jacket has 6 compartments. Those compartments are filled with hard cork. Now, at the time of the sinking, there was an understanding among people, or a suspicion, that there was going to be a great suction as the ship went down. So the idea was to get away from the ship as quickly as possible. So many people jumped from quite severe heights, 50 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet, as the stern raised higher and higher in the water. As the bow was being dragged down by the force of the water, people fell or jumped great distances. Well, there was no training on how to use the life jackets. That's one of the great criticisms, the justifiable criticisms, of both of Captain Smith and of the White Star Line, was that safety wasn't exactly job one on the Titanic.
Right.
There was no training on how to use the life jackets, and there was no drills on how to man the lifeboats. So when people jumped, they really didn't understand what was going to happen. They would normally jump feet first, and what happened was you're accelerating quite rapidly, jumping from the high distance. When you hit the water, the cork, of course, was much more buoyant than people were, and many people who the coroner in Halifax examined died from broken necks caused by the raising of the life jacket into their chins.
As you hit the water?
As they hit the water, yeah, unfortunately. But all things being told, it's probably not a bad way to go if you're going to go. Of course, most of the people who died didn't drown. They died of hypothermia.
Right.
The water was only 28 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
That's pretty cold.
Right. I think the movie, I saw it, I don't know if you did, depicted that treacherous moment when everybody knew how cold the water was, and you could see hypothermia certainly had set in.
That's right. And
yeah, take a little moment to look at a couple more intricate
yes.
artifacts.
This is a pocket watch, and the touching piece about the watch is that you'll notice that it stopped at 2:36 a.m. Now, the Titanic struck the iceberg at 11:40 p.m. on Easter Sunday evening, April 14th, 1912, and it sank at 2:20 in the morning of April 15th. So the watch continued to run for another 16 minutes after the disaster, and this was actually recovered from one of the bodies. Oh. So this was actually in the water after the disaster, ran for another 15 minutes, and it's frozen in time now.
Wow, that is quite a unique story.
Well, people really are touched by artifacts that people are closely associated with. Right. Jewelry, this watch, yeah. and it really, people get emotional about it.
All right. I'm going to just cut away to Rohan, who is a caller this evening. Rohan, thank you for calling. Do you have a question or a comment tonight?
Yes, Mayor Robertson and the curator of the Brampton Heritage Complex want to congratulate you for having the exhibition. My family and my friends have visited there several times, and I'm very, very proud to be a part of Brampton, and also remembering that Brampton is a film-friendly city. So we have shot more films in Brampton, and I hope that James Cameron remembers Brampton, and he has remembered Brampton by saying Caledon Hotley. That's something significant.
Yeah.
I've seen the Titanic more than 10 times.
Very good.
So,
Rohan, we appreciate your call, and we do hope to continue to promote Brampton in many ways, and many good ways. And one of the most important ways to get Brampton on the map, as you know, is to work it into the script of and a setting for a first-class movie. So if you know of any, or somebody out there knows a filmmaker, don't hesitate to invite them to come to our city. We're going to move along. Thank you for your call. How many artifacts are in the show?
There's about 150 different artifacts and archival records that relate to the disaster, and also some of the other ships of the White Star Line. The Titanic sister ship, the Olympic, the Britannic, the White Star itself. We have a Canadian White Star artifact, the White Star flag that flew over the ticket office of the White Star Line in Halifax. We have that on display as well.
You have a couple more.
Yeah.
How in the world would that come again on someone's?
This is actually the whistle of 5th Officer Harold T. Lowe. Now, Officer Lowe commanded the only lifeboat that returned to try to find survivors in the water, and that is depicted at the end of the film. And in fact, an officer's whistle plays a central role at the end of the film. And for those of you who haven't seen the movie, I don't want to give that away, other than to say that the whistle plays a very important part. And this actually is the whistle of Officer Lowe, who commanded that lifeboat who went back to pick up the survivors. They did find 4. And you didn't survive very long in that water, 28 degrees. You had to be holding on to some luggage or suspending yourself somehow from the water. But
we're going to have to close off shortly. If you just finish off with that plate, and then I'm going to wrap up the show.
Great. This is an actual dinner plate from the RMS Titanic, which is the Royal Mail steamer Titanic. And James Cameron consulted with the collector, Steve Santini, of these artifacts, and looked specifically at this plate to base the reproductions that he had made to create the authenticity of the movie itself. The funny thing is, the reproductions that Cameron made for the movie are now more valuable than the original artifacts themselves.
Wow. And this fascinates me. How would a plate that's China actually float or get to shore? Was it in a cabinet, perhaps? Was it?
There were several steamer trunks that were recovered floating on the water. They were buoyant enough to carry clothing and plates with them.
Great. Thank you, Mike.